Hello everybody and welcome. I'm Cindy Daychuk with Queen Bee Creations. Welcome to the channel. Thanks for joining me today. We are doing something, well, I was going to say a little bit different, but I say that all the time. I never know what I'm doing, and usually I don't know what I'm doing, meaning I've never done it before. So in this case, very, very true. It all started with an earlier video that you may have seen where I did the hanging terracotta pot wreath. Okay, never done that before either, but I bought a bunch of plants for it and I didn't use them all. So one of the things that I had done was bought some succulents. Not really, I thought they looked cute in the pots, but then I never really stopped to think about the fact I couldn't mix the succulents with the other plants because the whole watering thing and where do you put them thing gets messed up. So I had some succulents I needed to use up, and this project was born out of that. Sometimes it's just necessity. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take this old frame and we're gonna paint it out. So I'm gonna just paint it white. I'm gonna use beadboard by DIY, so no magic there. The only thing that you want to do is just select a frame if you're doing this project that you've got at least a little bit of depth. So you can see that this frame is kind of layered. I'm gonna have some depth because we're gonna be planting succulents in here, and so we need space for some of the dirt for them. But they don't need tons. So I'm going to paint this out twice and get it dried, and then come on back. I'm just reaching for a brush here, and then come on back, and then we get to start the fun stuff. So this is just, you know, it's painting. It's just prep, right? So we're just prepping this frame for this project. So I'm gonna get 2 coats on and pop back here when it's time for doing some of the dressing. But really, I need to get the frame all done before I do anything else, because I'm not gonna have a chance to mess with it once we start potting things into it. So I'll just carry on and have you join me when I got this done. Our picture frame has 2 coats on it. It's nice and dry. What we're looking at doing now, I feel like wetting it again. We're gonna do a little bit of wet distressing. So I'm just taking some little baby wipes, and I just want to kind of age it a little bit, bring back a little bit of kind of a worn element to it. So I'm just going to rub the baby wipes over that paint. DIY paint, clay-based paint, is water soluble, it's water based. So the baby wipes in essence reactivate that paint, and it makes it really easy to wet distress. So it saves me from getting, you know, paint dust all over the place. And I got a little sliver in my finger. And it just allows me to kind of distress this nice and easy. And you can see the distressing there. So I'm going to do 2 things. I am going to finish distressing this. I'm gonna get the sliver out of my finger. And then I'm gonna take DIY clear wax and a brush, and I'm just going to wipe it all down, cover this. We're then gonna be flipping this over, and I'll turn you down to be able to watch more of what I'm doing. But we're going to just kind of seal this off before we turn it face down and start working on the back. And that way that's going to protect some of my paint job. All right, for a bunch of the rest of this, we need to actually be working on this upside down. So as I'm doing this, I'm gonna turn you to be able to really see what I'm doing, rather than seeing my face. See the project, makes sense, and I'll talk at you as we go. So for this, we need to create a couple of layers. The first part is chicken wire. We need to be able to keep, you know, if we were just doing this as a tabletop, wouldn't be a big deal, but because we want to do a vertical garden, we need to keep all of the dirt and all of the plants in there. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to attach this chicken wire to the frame. And this is going to be our first layer of defense in keeping everything where it needs to be. So to do that, I got a staple gun, and I'm going to that staple jumped out. Let's try it again. So I just want to make sure that I get it in there as tight as possible, and then the other side we will try and get even tighter. Okay, so what I was finding is that the lip here of my staple gun didn't allow enough space for the staples to actually hit. It was popping out down the side. So you can see on this edge where it was popping out. So what I've had to do is create a little bit of a lip, a bend up in my screening on this side, kind of tuck it in, hold it up tight, and then push my staple gun in and a little bit on an angle and be able to catch it. And what you want to do is use your staple on all those crossbars so that we're able to staple those in nice and tight. So a little bit of change in the thought process of what's going to work, but it gets her done. Do this side, and then I'll come over to this side and I will try and pull that chicken wire taut. All right, so that it doesn't, it's not too loose, it doesn't bow out too much. Now the next part of this isn't sufficient to hold in all of our soil. So one of the things that you can do is you can take a piece of that black plant fabric and lay that out in it. You could pack in tons of moss and use that, or you could tuck in some burlap. I do have some of these moss sheets that I'm thinking that I want to use because I'm not going to be sticking succulents in everywhere. So some have tons and tons of succulents. This is it. Oh, let me get this out. So this is going to be a little bit varied. Now, using this, what it does mean is that I'm going to have to cut through this to get to my dirt to be able to plant my succulents. So it's going to be creating another layer that I'm going to have to get through. And I'm just wondering if it leaves me enough soil, but I think it does. Okay, so I do have a ready cut board that is going to fit over the entire back of this. But before I can do that, ouch, pokey things, I do need to layer in my soil. I have to have something for my succulents to sneak into. And I'm going to, and this is why you needed to have some kind of a frame that had a little bit of depth to it. Now succulents are great because they don't need, and I'm making a mess again, because they don't need tons and tons and tons of soil. We do want them to have a little bit of something. Here we go. And before I totally seal this up, I do want to add just at least a little bit of moisture in there to get it started. And we will water from the front again when we're done. Okay. So now we're going to put our backing board on. And once again, going to nail that in. Now, before I move on, I do want to ensure that I get this wired first. So I'm just going to use some little eye hooks and some wire and get this kind of wired up while I can still put it face down, so I have a way to hang it, and then I'll flip it over and we will continue on with getting this planted. Okay, and here is our screen. So what the idea is I'm gonna kind of lay these out a little bit so I get a rough idea of what I'm thinking of here and have a general idea of where they're going. And this kind of layout, a little bit staggered, I'm thinking. Okay, so what is needed is to kind of break apart these root systems a little bit, just loosen it up so that I can push them down through the chicken wire. Oops. Okay, out of my way there. Through the chicken wire, through the moss, and down into the dirt. It's not a huge hole. Just wondering though, if I clip that one little wire, pull that out of the way, I can really get that planted down in there. And the more secure they are, the better. Is my thinking. Okay, let's get rid of all the little pots. And then we just repeat for all of our little pots. So our little garden is done, and here's the moment of truth. Do these babies stay in there? A little dusting still required here and there. But there's my little walled garden, my little vertical garden. Now you could put more cacti in there, and I can always add if these guys live. So I can always add to it if I want, or I can leave it kind of this sparse. And that's one of the reasons I did the moss rather than just the fabric to hold them in place, is so that I did have kind of that wall of greenery happening. We've got a nice sturdy hanger on the back, and this is kind of a lot of fun. I mean, really, you know, you're looking at just every so often, these are cacti, so they're not going to need tons of water. For the most part, kind of spritzing it with water, or just doing a spritz where it's just closer to each of their roots and wetting that moss around them is going to work. If you need to do a little bit more of a watering periodically, then just take it down, lay it flat, do that, let it soak in, and then hang it back up on your wall. I love this. I love this idea. It's a great use for like an old frame that's kind of got a little bit of depth to it. This was not an attractive frame, but this makes it attractive. Let me know what you think of this one, guys. Certainly let me know if you try it. Check out the website, queenbeecreationshome.com. And until next time, take care.